At a black tie birthday, I reached the head table and found no chair. Fine. I canceled the buyout, released florals, music, gondolas, and had deposits returned to my account. The manager delivered the bill to them. I walked out. 48 hours later, the story broke. And so did they. A warm Las Vegas evening laid soft gold over the canals at the Venetian resort. Water glowed under the faux Greek sky, catching streetlights and the shadows of gondolas rocking along Grand Canal shops. On the private terrace beneath the glass dome, round tables were set. Crystal stemware, thin linen napkins, plates edged in delicate gold. One of those rare nights I let myself use the word perfect. I'm Anna Moore, owner of Moore & Company. Events, and tonight was supposed to be my undeniable win. We were celebrating my mother-in-law's 70th, Elaine Whitmore. Her husband, Richard Whitmore, is the kind of name that gets whispered in the right rooms and brings the right hands to the right checkbooks. My husband, Mark Whitmore, their oldest, is the family face on more than a few charitable boards. Mark's sister Kate, younger brothers Paul and Dylan with their wives, close relatives, everyone already settled at the head table by the time I walked in. This was my production, a menu tailored with the chef to match family stories, floral pieces in creamy peach, a gobo wash throwing a Venetian curl across the wall, and even a toast order stitched to the voices who'd give them. Too many hours of negotiations, follow-ups, checks, and rechecks to allow a single miss. I smiled at a housewaiter who, at my familiar nod, led me along the polished rail to the head table. Moving like in a dream, soft light, steady talk, quiet music, the faint jasmine of candles. I walked and thought, this is the calling card that books me a quarter ahead. Then I reached the table where every place card stood, every one, and saw nothing where mine should have been. Anna Moore Whitmore. No card, no cutlery, no chair. In that perfect half circle between Mark Whitmore and Kate Whitmore, a tidy blank, like a clean space in a sentence where my name had been hit with the delete key. I lifted my eyes. Elaine's smile, soft, practiced 100 times, sat on her face. Behind it, something I caught anyway, a poorly hidden flicker of satisfaction. "Something wrong, Anna?" she asked, in that voice that makes waiters lift their shoulders. I scanned the table. Everyone was looking at me. In some eyes, curiosity. In a few, tired superiority. Kate covered her lips with her fingers, as if to catch a laugh. Paul sank into his glass. Mark finally turned toward me. Nothing like the face you want to see on your husband when the floor drops. Relaxed, almost amused, like this was about a forgotten towel on a poolside chair. "Oh, looks like we miscounted by one," he said with a small shrug. "We'll fix it." A light laugh rolled around the table like glass across marble. Not the laugh that means we're together. The one that means you're not us. Heat climbed into my cheeks, but I didn't lower my eyes. For years I've trained teams. Don't intervene unless I signal. They didn't. Stage, light, timing, mine. Only now I felt, physically, a stranger's staging, a shove between my shoulder blades. "Looks like I'm not part of your family," I said evenly. My voice sounded cold and unfamiliar. The only thing I could trust to hold me up. Smiles faltered. Mark frowned, like he hadn't expected me to say anything but sorry. Elaine's fingers tightened on her pearls. I turned and walked the long side of the room. Heels ticked clearly against the marble. At nearby tables, donors and lawyers, Vegas aristocrats. Heads turned. I didn't speed up. I didn't drop my chin. Only in the elevator, when the doors closed, did I let out a breath, and my fists, tight all that time, finally trembled. My name is Anna Moore, and for the last 10 years I've built nights in the most literal way. brick to brick, stake to stake, call to call. Moore and Company Events was born in a co-working room with a coffee stain on the desk and a vendor list in Excel. It grew up on small weddings, corporate one-offs, and town festivals. Stubbornness, an eye for scenes, keeping my word, precise timing. That's the secret. When I first got a closed-door booking for a foundation tied to Richard Whitmore, I didn't think, there it is, the big chance. I was thinking about light, the stage, and the bad acoustics in the left wing, and then I went to work. "Are you the magician who makes nights work?" a man in a navy suit asked that evening, warm, almost without irony. I looked up. Mark Whitmore. In the smile. Habit. The world steps aside. In the voice, a rare curiosity about my craft, not, "Who did you call to get that wine?" We stood in the hallway behind the room, and I explained why a string quartet was right for that ceiling and how the gobo pattern stitched the entire space together. Mark listened, not waited for his turn to speak. He called every day. We wandered galleries and tiny cafes on the Lower East Side. We argued which 1950 Dior cut still sits right today. He laughed at my jokes. If anything surprised me, it was how easy it was not to feel like the event girl beside him. 3 months later, I met his parents, and for the first time, I went cold. The Connecticut house was a museum with live staff. Marble, tapestries, porcelain, gilt frames. Elaine smiled like a woman who'd learned every camera, but what stuck in my head was a single line I translated as brace. "Anna, you work so much. It's wonderful, of course. But family is something else entirely." Richard was polite and even, like a judge in his own court. His questions felt like the office. Plans, KPIs, teams, timelines. Kate studied me like a lot on the block. Interesting. A little plain. Let's see about restoration. Mark held my hand under the table, and that was enough for me to say yes when he asked. I ran our wedding myself. The plaza, high press, heavy bill, a photo that said ideal. But even then I saw Elaine whisper with friends and watched my name dissolve into our event girl. After the wedding, everything settled in. I made, they used, and politely kept me in the shadow. My ideas came back dressed in someone else's voice. My opinion was requested for show and tossed for sport. Mark joked, changed the subject, didn't stand with me. Love is compromise, I told myself. Compromise is a bridge, not a door, I told myself. And in time, I was living on their property by their plan. When Elaine said she wanted the birthday in Vegas, I spun up a new project chat and poured in double. I wanted facts on the table. A perfect dinner, a perfect terrace, perfect people in perfect light, and me in the frame with them. And still, something went wrong. The first crack. A simple prepayment. The venue manager, through my contractors, asked politely, "Why is the transfer late?" I personally pushed all payments through Moore and Company. That's how I control timing. My statements showed sent. His showed not received. I blamed the bank, pulled accounting. "It's under control, don't worry." But the calls kept coming. Florist, photo location, gondola company. "Where's the money, Anna?" I'm not the one who yells fraud without numbers in hand. But the puzzle no longer fit. Amounts looked right and landed wrong. Inside the family, the money always lives behind the curtain, and me, the in-law, I saw the facade. But in the project app were contracts, dates, deliverables, and the booking signature was mine. Nights, I opened threads, reconciled sheets, tugged on strings. Suspicions grew, and then, the morning before our flight, everything snapped into focus. Mark was in the shower. His phone lay on the table. I don't check phones. We're adults. But the screen lit with a name. Catherine Leary. Not Kate. His sister. Catherine Leary. His right ex. Governor's daughter, a high brow and perfect hair, the surname Elaine smiles on when she says, She's from a good family. Message. Miss you. Did you tell her yet? My fingers opened the thread. Everything was there. Months of messages, plans, flowers, we'll meet there. I can't wait to finally be together. And the word that knocked my breath off beat. Our baby. Their child. 4 months to go. I'll see you in Vegas when it's all done. Finally, we will be what we're supposed to be. I stood with the phone and my head went absolutely clear, like a stage 1 second before the curtain lifts. I would pick up the phones, the files, the contracts, every lever I had, and I would not let them play me. About 30 minutes until someone upstairs realized my chair wasn't an oversight and the smiles were rehearsed for a different ending. I pulled out my laptop and phone, opened my app. Every budget line carried contacts and authority. Moore and Company is the booking party, managing payments by agreement with the family, which meant cancellation runs through me too. I called Lena, my operations director. Checklist. Vegas venue. Indefinite postponement. Deposits back to corporate. Notes polite. No drama. Florist. Photo suite. Gondolas. Lights quartet. The same pattern. Emails from Moore and Company. Copy me in legal. Right now? Right now. We've got a half-hour head start. While Lena fired the mails, I texted legal. Need a memo on venue/music/photo contracts, risk, owner cancellation, admin fee retention? Rush on it, she replied in a minute. From behind the terrace glass, laughter drifted, the kind that cuts, not joins. It steadied my hands. I caught my reflection in the window, neat, composed, a shade too pale, and for the first time in years I recognized myself. A woman with not just a plan, but the right to change the ending. Then I did the thing I've done for clients 100 times, only now for myself. Checked the cake timing, the exquisite showpiece they wanted rolled to the terrace for the last toast. Asked the baker about a tomorrow noon redirect to a partner's private suite we keep for VIP hiccups, my quiet insurance against their whims. Yes, they said. Courier rerouted. I confirmed with the venue manager that we'd finish the dinner without add-ons, no extra charges on my side, no final moments that turn a night into a story. Dinner would happen, but the strokes that make it a legend, those were gone. Yes, I knew they'd try to finish me publicly. The truth at last, the empty chair, the worthy replacement. It had been in rehearsal for months. I couldn't not see it anymore. But I had my production, crack their circle under the brightest lights, and leave them to pay for the scene, the costumes, and the silence. Text from Lena. Venue confirmed. Florist, moved. Deposit back to Corp. Lighting, okay. Quartet, canceled. Photo, written okay. Memo from legal. As booking party, you can cancel with admin fee retention. Refund routes to your corporate account. PR blowback risk. Legal footing clean. I smiled, quick and thin. Not from joy, from alignment. I looked down at the canal water and heard the one voice I hadn't heard in years. My own. Not the critic. Not the, Anna, you're too much. Just the clear, cold light that says, do it. I closed the laptop, slipped it in my bag, leaned on the rail for one last breath. The gondolier still hummed something melancholy. In 20 minutes upstairs, someone would say, Anna, where? And in that, where I knew I'd hear panic when they realized I was holding the finish line. Right then, I told myself the truth I'd been dodging. This night, this project, this family had cost me more than any contract, piece by piece carving away myself. Sometimes to get your voice back, you have to strip their set bare. My phone buzzed. Unknown New York number. I didn't take it. Buzz again. Catherine Leary. I slid it into Do Not Disturb. Alerts stacked. Vendors, legal, Lena. I shut the screen. The half hour was almost up. I turned to the terrace doors, lifted my chin. Everything in order: beats, words, moves. 1. Confirm verbally the dinner continues without the extras. 2. Do not fix the empty chair. 3. Elaine's question and my answer. 4. Manager call at the table so it's clear who pays per contract. 5. Mark's toast, which will not go as planned. 6. Me. Breathe in. Breathe out. Doors open. I climbed the steps to the terrace, and for the first time that night, felt not anxiety, not humiliation, but the working focus a stage gives you when you write the final line. They didn't seat me at their table, so I set my own. I stood with the phone in my hand and felt my blood go cold. Photos on the screen. Catherine with the faintest hint of a bump. That soft, not yet round signal of a life that isn't mine. Mark holding her by the waist in a private dining room. 2 glasses on the table, their shapes caught in the mirror. Little captions. Soon. Counting days. I took careful screenshots, sent them to my encrypted cloud, wiped his phone clean. It didn't feel like the end. It felt like the first layer. When Mark came out of the shower, I was already at my laptop, pretending to check vendor emails. His MacBook sat open on the side table. He glanced, smirked. Finishing up the inbox? And stepped into the closet. I hadn't planned to snoop. I'm not that person. But I needed scale. How far this had gone. How deeply they'd already erased me. In the personal section was a folder. I clicked, and everything fit. Draft divorce from the family's lawyers. Anna Moore Whitmore, spouse, waives any claim to assets. The compensation read like a bad joke, less than one of my solid annual contracts. Another file. Scenario, step by step. Header. How to announce divorce at Elaine's 70th. Bullets. Mark presents a mutual decision. Anna leaves quietly. The family brand remains clean. Return to the right choice. I shut the laptop. My hands shook. My head went clear and still. The way a control room goes right before the curtain rises. The payment delays. Mark's evasions. Elaine's chill. All stitched into one show where I am the loser who slips off stage. Catherine Leary. Perfect surname and a baby on the way. Their restoration of how things should be. And the money. Bits of whispers between Mark and Richard. Foundation. Transfers. Audits. I wrote my accountant, pull everything on the Vegas week. What left Moore and Company, what got reallocated by the Whitmore side. 40 minutes later, a neat table in my inbox. Some funds meant for venue, lighting, music, photo had gone sideways, through a charitable structure bearing their name and a couple of offshore hops. I wasn't wrong. They were skimming my vendors to patch their facade. I closed the laptop. Knew I had a lever. Knew I had no time. I grabbed my bag, went downstairs, and found a small cafe across from the restaurant. Warm bread, dark espresso, a table by the wall. I opened my project system, stopped seeing their picture, saw mine. Contracts, signatures, payments. I was the booking party. Deposits ran through me. So did cancellation. First thing, I wrote Luke, the venue manager. Luke, per our agreement, Moore and Company is the booking party. Please cancel tonight's buyout. Return deposits to Moore and Company. A CH attached, and add this notice to the check. Anna Moore. I attached scans of authority and a short note for their counsel. Hit send. Next, the florist, cream roses and white orchids along the rail. Order canceled. Refund to Moore and Company per section 4.1 gondolas for the morning serenade. Cancel fleet and performer. Refund to Moore and Company. Photo suite at the neighboring hotel. My parachute for last-minute whims. Release the suite. Refund to Moore and Company. String quartet in the private hall. Cancel per section 4.2. Agency retains admin fee. Balance refunded. Limo fleet for the late-night strip ride. Fleet release? Refund per contract. Funds to Moore and Company. Each confirmation landing in my inbox flattened my breath. Letter by letter, I peeled another layer off the years I'd spent silent. I messaged Luke a single word. Time. Then I moved to a narrow service alcove by the terrace doors. From there I could see their table. They couldn't see me. Elaine gleamed, taking toasts, posture set for portraits. Richard nodded in that control is mine way. Mark laughed at something Kate said. Like this moment had been scripted and filmed weeks ago. The picture worked. Until Luke approached with 2 servers, bent to Richard, showed the tablet. Polite attention. A crease. Richard reached for his wallet. Luke shook his head, pointed to the screen. Deposit returned to Moore and Company. Buyout canceled. Check due now. The sound at the table thickened. Elaine eased back her glass. Her smile went dim. Kate whispered to her husband. Mark took his phone, tapped, stopped. I stepped out of the alcove. 12 eyes came to me at once, from puzzled to furious. Looks like I really am not family, I said. Which means I'm not obligated to fund your party. Mark stepped forward. His voice shook. Anna, what are you doing? Put it back. Now I looked him straight on. Calm. I know everything, Mark. About Catherine? About the baby? About your plan to announce it tonight so it looks like I asked for it? And about the money that got lost? Foundations, transfers, audits? Richard pressed his lips and cleared his throat. One note to reclaim timing. This is not for scenes? I smiled a little. You staged the scene when you removed my chair. I just rewrote the ending. Restaurant, gondolas, concert, photo location, canceled. Deposits returned to my account as the booking party, and by the way, I added, meeting Elaine's eyes, I have documents. Messages, tables, everything the people already asking about your foundations want to see. Elaine shot to her feet. How dare you? This is my birthday. You will not. I already did, I said. You counted on me swallowing it. No. You didn't seat me. I set a boundary. I turned and walked toward the exit. Luke glanced up. We traded a short nod. Respect. Behind me, the scene unraveled. Richard too loud on the phone to pretend it's fine. Elaine crushing the napkin until her knuckles went white. Mark watching me like he'd never seen me. Their perfect facade cracked in public. I knew it was only the beginning. Next morning I flew to New York. Miles, coffee instead of champagne, oval window, torn white clouds. My phone stayed silent. No Mark, no Elaine, no attorneys. They were busy with the fire, and silence was my first win. A concierge friend in the hotel whispered the sort of detail only a town like Vegas spreads fast. They closed the restaurant check after Elaine left her pearl strand with the manager as security for a rush wire. The story ran the supplier network faster than any gondola on any canal. By morning, vendors I hadn't reached yet wanted prepay and refused to work on name alone. Yesterday, Whitmore opened doors. Today, the name met warning looks. I didn't celebrate their fall. I felt justice. They wanted to erase me and sell my disappearance as mutual. They stumbled into their own scandal. Back in Manhattan, I went to our house on the Upper East Side. 5 years of my life. And it looked like a set I'd never belonged in. Gleaming stairs, heavy chandeliers, gilded frames. I hired movers and took only what was mine. Clothes, books, 2 paintings I'd bought myself, a box of battered notebooks with first sketches, messy and alive. Wedding gifts, furniture, even the ring, stayed. I didn't want a single thread that tied me to their last name. By evening, I stood in my small, bright West Village apartment. Taxis hummed on 7th Avenue. It smelled like pizza from the corner. My chest felt like it opened. Divorce was next. And I ran it like an event. Timeline, risks, tasks. I gave my lawyer the whole folder. Mark plus Catherine's messages, screenshots, the foundation flow table, the draft agreement they planned to make me sign. Those papers were my shield and sword. The Whitmore lawyer arrived with a modest payout and mutual NDA. My attorney smiled and spoke like a toast. My client is not interested. We have enough to challenge any attempt at pressure. And yes, we have places to send this further. They backed off. It went through quietly. Mark signed from behind his lawyer's shoulder, avoiding my eyes. Word spread he moved in with Catherine. Her pregnancy stepped out of whispers into posts. Richard kept stepping up to podiums with the old spine, but the shadow of audits and transfers moved through independent pages. Where Whitmore used to be a password, people started with, "Have you read?" I didn't follow them on purpose. The news came sideways. Clients, colleagues, business press. Elaine canceled a few charity nights for family reasons. Kate posted less gloss and more empty skyline. A family used to dictating now learned to defend. And my world expanded. Business grew. Clients who once saw me as Whitmore's wife started coming to me as the woman who didn't break under high society pressure and didn't drop into cheap melodrama. Moore and Company won a string of contracts. A Fortune family wedding, a tech giant corporate, an international foundation gala. I heard the new ask in their voices, not only taste and timing, resilience. One afternoon, coffee in Soho, a friend said, "You showed them who really sets the lights." And for the first time in a long time, I laughed. Clean, without bitterness. A year passed. We closed opening night for a major cultural festival in Manhattan. The stage flowed with live light. Guests whispered wow at each detail. When the last guest left, I walked to the Hudson with a glass of white. Wind tugged my hair, and I thought about that terrace in Las Vegas, about the chair that wasn't. I truly believed it was the end. It wasn't. The missing chair was the beginning. It showed me my place isn't at their table, in their staged world. It's anywhere I define my value. I refused a life built on compromise and hush, and found joy in the freedom to be myself. I lifted my glass toward the sky and said quietly, "To a new start." Water glittered below, and I smiled. Easy. Real. Vegas is the past. The lesson stays. No one can take your power unless you hand it to them. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment with your thoughts. See you in the next video.